Hi, I'm Scott Pilkington. Let's talk about the Engravers Library today. Having some books for resources is a wonderful way to get started as an engraver. Many things are strictly related to the technique or fabulous photographs which you can draw designs from, but there's a lot of historical things that you should know as well, both in a practical sense and just being able to understand what's happened in the engraving world over the centuries. Today we're going to look at two interesting books. One really is from the 16th century. It's an autobiography from Benvenuto Cellini from Italy. He was a goldsmith, engraver, and sculptor. And the second book I want to look at is from 1975. I was 11 years old in 1975. But this is the Guns Digest from that year, and it's kind of a high watermark for engravers. There's many interesting articles in this particular issue, but most importantly it was the coverage here that brought the names Winston Churchill and Linton Mackenzie to their fame that they achieved in later years. It was really first focused in this book, and we'll look at some of the articles that are in here and why they're relevant. But back to Benvenuto, let's read a small passage of an issue that he had dealing with, let's call it client relations. And let me find where we want to be here. Here we go. So, I worked very diligently to finish the vase that I had begun for the Bishop of Salamanca. He was a marvelous sort of man, very rich, but very hard to please. Every day he used to send someone along to find out what I was up to, and on one occasion, when his messenger found me not in, the bishop lost his temper and swore that he would take the work away from me and give it to someone else to finish. This was all because of me giving my time to playing that damn music. All the same, I worked at the vase very diligently, day and night, till it reached the stage where I could show it to him. As a result, the bishop grew so impatient to have it finished that I regretted having let him see it. At the end of 3 months, it was done. It was adorned with a wonderful variety of very pretty little animals and leaves and masks. I took the vase along to Salamanca, and he decided to have it valued. Luciano, his former boss, took part in the valuation, and he put a higher price on it and praised it far more than I would have done. Then Salamanca took a hold of the vase and, like a typical Spaniard, said, "I swear to God I will take as long to pay him as he took in making it." When I heard this, I found myself in a very nasty frame of mind, cursing all Spain and anyone who stood up for that country. Okay, moving onward to 1975, let's take a look at some articles in here. Okay, here we go. Let's open this thing up. And first, the interesting thing that I see, in 1975, apparently there was a paper shortage. It says the paper shortage has forced us to eliminate from this 29th edition the Arms Library pages and the standing cartridge references. Well, fortunately, the paper shortage didn't force them to get rid of the engraving parts, and that's what we're interested in. So, let's skip along through here. Here's an interesting article about an air gun. Everyone knows that I have a great deal to do with air guns, but I've got my little book darts that I was just putting in this book. And here's an interesting article on Linton Mackenzie and Richard Hodgson. A lot of photographs. Some of these guns are famous in other books. But there's definitely some photographs that I haven't seen elsewhere. And a lot of interesting reading about Linton's work. I guess he had been in the United States for 4 years at this time. And then we've got this fine article here on Winston Churchill. And there's a complete history of Winston up to life that was a letter Winston wrote to Linton Mackenzie, telling how Winston got started, this time in the Navy, working for Abercrombie and Fitch with Joseph Fugger, and of course many fine photographs of his work. And then they talk about some other custom gun makers in here. There's a nice article on Franz Markel, master engraver from Austria, that many will recognize from some of the older engraving books. And there's a nice little sidebar here. It says Davis Gun Shop had a booth at the 1974 NRA meetings in Atlanta, Georgia, with Franz Markel in attendance and showing examples of his striking engraving. Other engravers at the same meeting were Linton McKenzie of New Orleans, Winston Churchill, a native Vermonter, and John Rohner. John Rohner, of course, is the R in the GRS company. These exhibits of first-class engraving were among the top attractions at Atlanta. Our longtime readers know that the Gun Digest began to illustrate the work of engravers many years ago. We wanted to acquaint readers everywhere with the art of the engraver and with what was being done to decorate and embellish firearms, much of it excellent, some of it not so good. I'm delighted to see this growing interest in engraving, and even more so to watch these young men working hard and becoming such superb artists. McKenzie and Churchill are both in their 30s, like Franz Markel. It's immensely gratifying, too, to know that this resurgence of high craftsmanship is by no means confined to carving and chiseling of metal. We have today in this country more master-class stockmakers and creative metalsmiths than ever before. In this age of the machine, this period when plastics predominate, there appears to be a surprisingly strong urge to the development of the manual skills. I am more than pleased. And that's JTA, which is John T. Amber, who was the editor of the Guns Digest. And we're really quite proponent of the engraving arts for many years. Moving onward, some other interesting articles in here for engravers. Let's see. There's quite a little section about Italy and the Italian shotgun manufacturers and the Uberti family and a lot of their reproductions. Actually, here's another gun, a Uberti engraved for John Amber. Here's Mario Albiatico that wrote all the original fabulous Italian books that we're all familiar with for the great Bellino work. Some early examples here of Italian work here and here. And then the normal Art of Engraving section that's in every Guns Digest. 1975, we've got a lot of folks. John Warren, Army Farmers, the Italian company, Bob Swartley, Tommy Kay, TJ Kay, he was president of the FIGA for a while, Ken Hirsch, Floyd Warren, Joe Condon, Bryson Gunnell, Frank Hendricks, Leonard Francolini, Howard Grant, more Tommy Kay. Really just a fabulous smorgasbord of things in here for the engraver to look at. And let's see, I've got a marker down here pointing out something. Oh no, that was the Rohner gun. Another interesting tidbit in this book, there's even a knife section. Some engravers of note. Harvey Mac Burnett engraved all of his knives. Henrik Frank did fabulous engraving on all his knives. And of course there's some knife makers, well, Sid Bell, Bill Maines, both engravers that folks may know. Tommy Dow, Jimmy Lyle, Bill Moran, Shaw Leibowitz, George Herron. These are the names that would be uber famous in years to come. And of course, the cover has got some kind of interesting engraving graphics. I'm not sure how exactly these were done back in those days, but both the front cover and the rear cover show this engraving that's reproduced somehow. It's not a photograph, and I suspect from what I can see that it was created somewhat by the graphic artist. In fact, there's even a reference here. It says the man who did these brilliant drawings is the inimitable James M. Triggs. I'm going to have to find out more about him and his technique to create these. And look here, just as I'm flipping through here this right now, I saw something else noteworthy. Here's a Jack Prudhomme engraved receiver done on a Dale Goins gun. This is just really a fabulous year for the Guns Digest for those interested in engraving. In fact, I'm going to stick one of my little bookmarks. These are called book darts. My Chinese engraver friend Fan Su introduced me to these. They make these in silver, brass, and stainless steel. And I opted to get the stainless steel ones just because I thought they might have the least impact on my paper on my book collection. So that's installed. And then last but not least, very interesting side note to the engravers is found in this book right there. On page, on we go. On page 288, Shooter Showcase, we have The Art of Engraving. The publisher of this book is Bob Brownell, Montezuma, Iowa, and it's a review of The Art of Engraving, which had just came out at that time. Now I think it's in its 30th or 40th reprinting, and many of the engravers, myself included, started out trying to learn how to engrave with that book. So it was interesting to see it referenced here. Well, okay, that's enough for today. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, and I'll be bringing you more updates on books that engravers should have in their library. Talk to you later.